Next, let us see how we can manipulate the columns. So we can create new columns from the existing columns also. So let's say you have since two columns, item price and sales count. So what you can do, you can just multiply them together, and item price into sales count, you already know that it will give the revenue of an item. So since we have not a revenue column, we can just create a revenue column. So how you can create that? You have to just give the data frame name. So we have a menu data frame, and whatever the new column that you want to create, you have to just give that name. So let's say I want to create revenue, then equals to, and whatever the columns that you are using, so I'm using item price, and I'm multiplying that. So a star sign is for multiplying, and I'm multiplying with that sales count. So you need to also give the menu df, because that menu df and item price will filter out all the item price values, and it will multiply them with all the sales count values, and it will just return all of these values for all of the rows. So at the back end, it will just multiply all of the corresponding rows, and it will create a revenue column. So you can see, if I just run that, and if I just fetch the head of the data set, you can see this is the items we have, item id, and you can see at the last of the column you have a revenue column, and that is having some of the values like 153, 1592, all of these things, what a revenue. That means the two columns you are using, item price and the sales count. So you can see 19.15 into 8 will be 153. So this is how you are getting the revenue value. Now there will be also some of the items. Let's say you want to filter out the items which is not revenue is not equals to 0. So it might be happen now, some of the items are not sold. So in those cases, the sales count will be 0, or the item price will be not actually 0. So item price will be always greater than 0. It might be possible that some of the values are 0 just because of some mistakes on or the null values you have. So in those cases, we can replace those values, but sales count may have 0. So in those cases, revenue will come out as a 0. And let's say you want to filter out those columns. That means you want to filter out that whatever the data set you have that will not contain the revenue equals to 0. So in those cases, what you can do, the way you have filter out like menu df revenue, either you can do what you can do, either you can just there are two ways actually. So either the old fashioned, you know, that thing you can do, you can just remove that thing, and you can just enter a not equals to sign. So this is also true, you can just do that thing, or you can do this thing. So this is what actually this is the reverse of that true statement. So true statement is what? Menu df revenue equals 0. So that means first of all you are filtering out revenue equals 0. Now you are using a not sign before that, so it will just filter out all of the rows that is revenue is not equals to 0. And this is again also correct. So this is what actually doing, it is just comparing menu df revenue not equals to 0, and it is filtering out. So both of these statement are same thing, you can use whatever you want. Now let's say again I want to create another column based on the column or whatever the column that I have created revenue, and what I'm actually creating, I'm creating the gross profit margin. So you already know what is actually gross profit margin. It will be revenue from the cost per item divided by revenue. So whatever the revenue profit that you are generating, so profit is what actually revenue minus cost and divided by the actual revenue you are having. So that is what gross profit margin actually, and I'm just multiplying that with the 100 to convert that into percentage level. So you can see, if I just run that and print the head of the menu df, you can see at the last you are having gross profit margin, and this is actually in percentage. So whatever the value you are having, that will be always less than 100, because these are in the percentage. So 94%, 99%, all of these value are here. Yeah, so that is how you can create new columns. Now you have learned to create some of the columns. Now, so you will ask how we can delete the columns. Yeah, that is true, you can also delete a column. What you can do, you can just do to remove a columns, what you can do, menu df dot drop. So this is the method that we are using, dot drop, and what are the columns that you want to drop out, all of those values you can put it here. So if that is a single column, so you will just put the single column here, but you are having multiple column to drop out, you have to just pass that into a list. So let's say I want to drop out item id and item description. In that case, you can just pass out that inside a list. Then you have to provide x is equals to 1. So why you are providing x is equals to 1? So that it will search on the columns, not the rows. So there are two indexes now. Column indexes are having the column headers, and this is the row indexes. So if you provide 1, it will just take the indexes in the column wise, and it will just find out that index, and it will delete the whole column. And if you provide x is equal to 0, and if there is any indexes of that name, it will just delete the whole row. So since you want to delete a column, so you will provide x is equals to 1 and then in place equals to true to make it in place operation. So after running that thing, and you can just see the menu df, you can see the first and the second column you are having item id and item description, not the first and second, the first and third one. So this will be actually deleted. So you can see it is starting from item name. So you are not having item id and item description, you are having item name and then item type. So this is the result we are getting. So this was about deleting a column. So you can just delete a single or a multiple columns. Now we are going to look at some of the basic operations that we can do. So let's say whatever the revenue you have seen, you want to find out the total revenue. So how you can find out total revenue? So just menu df, and on revenue column you want to find out the sum. So you have to just apply dot sum on that. So that's it. This is the total revenue you are getting. Next, setting indexes of a data set. So let's say uh, instead of having the normal by default indexes like 0 1 2, you want to change the indexes of a data set. So you can actually create some of the columns that you already have. You can just take that column as an index. So that you can also do. How you can do that? So menu df dot set index, that you can apply, and you can give the column name that you want to convert that into indexes. So earlier item name was what, a simple column you have. Now you are converting that into indexes, and you are taking in place equals to true. So that means it will just reflect on the original data set, and you can see now you are having item name, all of those values. You can see this has been provided as an index now. So earlier you are having indexes as 0 1 2 3 4 5 like kind of thing, but now you are having indexes as the name. So if you want to if you want to use that dot log, if you remember the indexing, for indexing you use dot log. In that case you can't just provide the values like 1 2 3 4 5 like that, because the name of that index is not numerical anymore. So it has been changed to a string value. So all of those values, item name, all of those values are actually what the indexes right now. So you have to just provide the name of these indexes to fetch that row. So you can just try out that thing on your own, and you can just learn how you can do that. And you can just run dot info on that, and you can just see what are the changes that has been made. So instead of having indexes as 0 1 2, now you can see the indexes are what, like starting from noodle, rice, beef, pork, dessert to the last one is the rice entry. So this is what you are having as an index instead of 0 1 2 3. And these are the columns you have. And yes, you can see revenue and gross profit margin all are added here, and all of those values are non null, and all of those values are float actually. And you can also do some of the indexing. Yeah, dot iloc you can use to fetch the first 5 rows and first 5 columns from starting 1 to 4. So this one, the 4 actually 5 columns. So this is what you have. And yes, that is how you can filter out the columns and rows. And you can just use the dot lock also. So for using dot lock, what you have to do, the thing I have just mentioned, I can just show you how it is working. So if I just do, instead of dot iloc, if I just do dot lock, so you can see I'm using dot lock. And now let's say I want just item name, so I can just copy that, paste it here. So if I just do that, one thing you can notice that it is giving an error. Why? It is because that key error is the item name. So item name is not actually a column anymore. So it is actually what? It is indexes. Now if I just replace that with, let's say, item type, will it run or not? So let's see what happens if I just do item type. Even if it will give an error. Why it will give an error? You can see cannot do slicing indexing on these indexes like 0 of type integer. Why it is telling? Because these indexes are not integer anymore. So you are providing 0 to 5, it is not actually integer. So if I just give the name of the indexes, so let's say I want this one. So if I just give the name of that index, if I just provide that, and if I just run that now, you can see now we will be getting that row. So that's it. You can see we are getting dessert. So why we are getting dessert? Just we have just provided this index only now. So for this index and the column I want item type, so this is the only value dessert. So that is why it is returning dessert. Next we are going to look at dot apply method. So what it does, it applies a function to every row of a data frame. So it becomes handy, let's say when the case is that you want to apply some of the functions, let's say some logics that you have made to apply on each of these rows. So let's say for you want to create a new column and you want to take some of the columns that are existing and you want to do some of the logic on that, calculation on that. So it is not a simple calculation that you can directly do. So you have already seen how you can create revenue and gross profit margin, but in those cases that was a simple calculation. You can just multiply the two rows and you get the values. But there are some cases when you want to apply some of the logics that are not simple as that. So in those cases you want to use dot apply method, so that you can just create a function and then you can apply that function to each of the row of your data set. So how you can do that? So let's say I will give an example, a simple example. What is happening here? Let's say there is a column ingredients. We have a column that is ingredients in our menu df. Now if I just do indexing, let's say menu df ingredients, and I am extracting the first row. So square bracket 0 means I am taking the first row, and after that I am taking the fourth, let's say inside that ingredient I am taking the fourth index. So for the fourth index you will simply see, if you just do 0 1 2 3, there is not fourth index actually. If I just do 3, let's say 3, in that case it should return pork, because 0 1 2 3, third, at the third index it is pork. So if I just run that, you can easily see that what it is returning. Instead of pork, what it is returning? O. Why it is returning O? Because whatever the values that is present here, noodles, rice, beef, pork, that is actually looking at here, or you can easily see that it is actually inside a list. But what is happening here, that this is actually inside a string. So whole list is considered as a string. So that is why the indexing is starting from here itself. So that first square braces is having the index of 0, and that inverted comma having the second index, then n as the third index. So indexing is starting itself from here. So that square braces, you can see it is also coming at the 0th index, then inverted comma at the first index, then n at the second index, and at the third index it is O. So that is why you are getting the simple O. But you want to convert them into actually a list of strings, not the total as a string. So how you can do that? So let's say you want to do that thing. How you can do that? You can do that thing using dot apply method. So what actually you are doing, you are converting a string to a list. So that is why I'm just giving a name, let's say convert a string to list. So I'm defining a function def convert a string to list, and I am taking argument as a string, since this all is considered as a string. So this all value is considered as a string. So that is why I am taking a string, and after that what I am doing, I am returning what? Eval str. So whatever the string that I am taking, I am doing eval str. So eval is actually a function actually that will convert your string to a list. So that is why I'm just doing that thing. So this is the simple function that I have defined. Now I have to apply this function to each of the rows. So that means I want to apply this function to each of the rows of ingredients column so that it will be converted into a list. So after defining that function, what I have to do, I have to just apply that function to each of the rows. So let's say menu df ingredients. So on this column I want to apply, so that I want to just replace those values. So that is why I'm reassigning that. So menu df ingredients, and on that column I'm applying dot apply. So this is the method that we are using, dot apply, and we are passing that function that we have defined. So convert str to list, this is the function that we are passing here. And what will happen, for each of the rows of ingredients column, this function will be getting applied one by one, and it will be returned as a list, and that will be stored inside that ingredient column again. And yes, after that, after applying that, if I just run that thing, so I have not defined the method first, so I have to just function, actually I have to just define that function. Now I can just define that, so it will be applied. And next, now what I can do, if I just print the 0th row, you can see this is the value that we are getting. So it should be getting, yeah, this one is we are getting. Now if I just do indexing, so instead of let's say 3, I'm just passing the same value 3. Now it should return pork. So you can see it is now returning pork instead of O. So that is how it has been getting converted into a list of strings instead of a string itself. So that is how you can use dot apply method to apply some of the functions to each of the rows that you want. Similarly, I have shown another function. Let's say I'm creating a new column, let's say is vegetarian. So if there is some of the items that are present inside a ingredients column, let's say we have ingredient list. So we are passing that ingredient list here, and we are just checking, like using for loop, we are just checking if the item in bread, noodles, rice, tofu and vegetable, if these are the items, then I'm just continuing it, else I'm returning 0. So in this case, what will happen, it will just take the each of the ingredient list. Let's say for the first row, it will go for the noodles, rice, beef, pork. So you can see this one is what, actually a non-vegetarian item. So since this condition is not getting true, so what will happen, it will go to the else condition and it will return 0. So that is why it is returning 0. That means what, it is not a veg material. So if let's say for each of the item it is let's say there is no any non-veg item, so in that case it will go to continue, 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 and it will end up, and at the last you will return 1. So that means it is a veg item. So that is how you can just define a logic for your function. So let's say I'm just running that thing and I'm applying that the menu df, and if I just see that data frame, we have menu def dot head. So you will see a column that has been generated at the last, and is vegetarian. So is the material vegetarian or not? So you can see 0 0 0, that means it is a non-veg item. So the all the top 4 are having non-veg item, because you can see all of those non-veg item, beef, fish, shrimp, then beef, then pork, all of these fish are actually present here. That is why they are not a vegetarian item. So that is why we are getting 0. If there is a any vegetarian or not a non-vegetarian item, that means in that case you will get. Then you can do sorting also. So based on the column, let's say on revenue column you want to do a sorting. So what you can do, you can just apply menu df dot sort values, and on which column that you want the sorting, you can just give that column, and is it the ascending or descending. So if you don't give any value, by default it will be ascending order, and if you want descending order, then you have to give ascending equals to false, and you can give in place equals to true or false, any according to your choices. If you want in place operation, it will be reflected to original data set. So if you just apply that, you can see your value will be actually ordered in descending order. See, since you are telling ascending equals to false, so you can see the top value will be having the highest revenue 1983, and then that is in decreasing order. So at last you are having the list uh, revenue is having 5.55. I don't know which item it is. It is actually tofu dessert. So it is telling tasty dessert and it is having the lowest revenue. And yes, you can also order the data set based on the multiple columns also. So if you provide more than one columns, what will happen? This will be the first preference, and if there is in any match that is happening on that column, then the second column will comes into action and ordering will be done on the second column. So that is how you can apply two columns. Then the next thing is n unique. So let's say you want for any item, you want the what are the unique values for that. So you want that what are the unique items you have. So you have total 1000 rows, but what are the unique items? Total 710 unique items. So that means there are some items that are repeated. Then the next thing is the group by. So what is that thing, group by? So it will actually group by for any column. Let's say for any column, let's say for item type, you want to group by. That means based on the item type, it will find some aggregate value. So on which column you want to aggregate that. So let's say you want the aggregate of rating, and what is the thing that you want aggregate value? You want mean. So what will happen? Let's say you are applying menu df dot group by, then by equals to, that means on which column you want to apply group by. Let's say on item type you want, and what is the aggregate value that you want? Mean of the ratings. So that means for each item type it will give the mean of the ratings. So for item type appetizer, it will having average rating this one, for dessert this one, for drink this one, and for entree this one. So these are the values that we are getting. And what we are doing actually, a dot reset index, this is actually used to again reset the indexes, and again we are using name equals to average rating to provide the whatever the counted that aggregate value rating dot mean that we are getting. We are just giving the column name for that aggregate value. So that is why we are having average rating here, and these are the values we are having. So that is it. You can just try it out. You can just do group by on multiple columns or so, and you can also find out the multiple aggregate things, like I'm just finding out the average of rating, but you can also find out, let's say, the average of revenue, then what are the maximum revenue, the minimum revenue, what are the maximum profit margin. All of those things you can get here, but I'm just showing the simplest thing because I just wanted to introduce you what is actually those things, what are the methods and function that you can use it here. But when we will be doing some of the projects, or we will be doing some of the analysis, in those cases whatever that is the requirement we have, we will look at those things. Now let's explore some of the unique and missing values. So unique value you have already seen, like n unique returns the number of unique values that you have already seen. Like using that n unique, you can see the total number of unique values. But let's say you want to see that unique values, in those cases you can apply dot unique. So it will just return the unique values. So let's say for item type you want what are the unique values. So you can see dessert, entree and drink, appetizer. For item description, these are the unique values you have. Now you can just apply n unique to get the count of that unique items, and you can also apply dot value counts that I have already shown you earlier. So you can just do value counts. It will just run the combination of that thing, like unique and n unique. So unique just return the what are the unique values you have, and n unique returns the count. The combination of those things can be done in value count. So you can see dessert, and the count of the dessert is getting returned here. Then you can check if there is any null values you have. So using that is null command, you can just get the null values you have. So let's say this is just returning the boolean values. If you want the how many null values you have, you can just sum up all the things. So you can just at last you can just apply dot sum. So it will return, or let's say since you have no any null values, so that is why it is returning 0. In case you have any null values, so it will return the count of that null values. And let's say in those cases, if you have any null values and you want to replace that null value, let's say you want to replace that null value with some other value. Let's say in revenue, let's say there might be cases in revenue you are having some of the null values. So let's say you want to replace that null values with the mean of the revenue. So whatever the revenue value that you have, you want to replace the mean of that revenue with the that null values. So it might be possible now null values will create actually problem in the future. So in those cases, so either you can just replace with the 0, or you want to replace with the some of the numbers that actually matters. In those cases you can just replace with the mean or median or whatever the things that is actually applicable there and actually suitable there. So this is the thing. Yeah, so you can use dot fill in those cases, and you can just provide the values, and in place equals to true or false, it depends on your choices. So that is it, guys. We have finished up pandas data frame. So we have seen pandas library, then pandas data frame, and how we can interact with the CSV file, and how we can use those library and the function and methods that is present in those library, and how we can interact and do some of the analysis. So this was just a simple thing that we have seen, not the analysis. In the later videos we will be seeing how we can do an analysis on a data set, like we will define a problem statement and we will go through it, or we have some of the random data that we want to find some of the insight out of that. So in those cases we will be doing some of the analysis. So that is it from this session. I hope you would like this video and all the things has been cleared. If you have any doubt, you can just comment out, or you can just join the WhatsApp community and you can ask any doubt there. At last, I will just request to click the thumbs up button so that it will be reachable to more the learners like you. Yeah, and that's it. I will meet in the next session soon. Till then, take care. Goodbye.